A perfect plate of kimchi fried rice hits three specific notes. It is smoky, it carries a deep, spicy tang, and it finishes with the rich, binding run of a liquid egg yolk. But when most home cooks attempt this, they usually end up with a different result: soggy, mushy clumps of rice carrying a flat, one-dimensional flavor. Fixing this requires controlling moisture before the ingredients ever hit the pan and relying on aged fermentation to develop complex umami. To get there, you need a strict checklist of structural components: cold, day-old rice, deeply aged kimchi, rendered animal fat, a spoonful of gochujang, and butter. If you treat this recipe as a precise sequence of moisture extraction and thermal reactions, rather than tossing everything into a wok and hoping for the best, you guarantee a restaurant-tier result. Step 1 is securing the right base carbohydrate. You need short grain or jasmine rice, and it must be cooked the day before. Leaving rice in the fridge overnight triggers a process called retrogradation. The starches harden and the grains shed their surface moisture. Hot, freshly cooked rice will stick together and form a solid mass in the pan. Cold, day-old rice falls apart into perfectly separated, distinct grains. Next, we extract the moisture from our primary flavor agent. Before you chop your kimchi, squeeze the juice out of it by hand and save that liquid in a separate bowl. And the kimchi you use matters. It needs to be old. Extended anaerobic fermentation produces high levels of lactic acid, giving the cabbage the sharp acidity and umami depth required to cut through heavy fats. Take that reserved sour kimchi juice and whisk in a splash of soy sauce and a spoonful of gochujang to create a concentrated sauce base. Gochujang is a dense, fermented Korean chili paste. It provides the vibrant red pigment for the rice and delivers a concentrated matrix of sweet heat. Separating the liquid from the solid cabbage up front is a strict mathematical requirement. It is the only way to achieve a deep, caramelized sear on the kimchi later without boiling the ingredients in their own juices. Now we initiate the thermal sequence. Drop diced pork belly or bacon into a wok over medium-high heat. Do not rush this step. Allow the heat to fully render the lipids out of the meat, creating a rich, liquid cooking medium. Once the meat is crisp, drop in your volatile aromatics, minced garlic, and the chopped white sections of your scallions. Then add a knob of butter directly into the rendered pork fat. The milk solids in the butter act as a catalyst, aiding in the browning process. Now introduce the dry, chopped kimchi into that bubbling fat matrix. You are looking for a specific visual cue here. Keep sautéing until the kimchi shifts from a raw, bright red to a translucent, caramelized golden orange. Aggressively cooking the kimchi in these mixed fats neutralizes its raw, biting acidity, developing a deep, roasted flavor profile that you simply cannot get by just warming it up. With the flavor base built, drop your cold, separated rice directly into the wok. Toss the rice continuously. You want to ensure every individual grain is coated in the caramelized fat before any liquid is introduced to the pan. Once coated, pour your reserved gochujang and kimchi sauce over the rice and immediately escalate to maximum heat. As that liquid hits the hot wok, it creates an intense thermodynamic reaction. Thick steam will billow up as the water content rapidly evaporates. This brings us to the 30-second press. Flatten the rice tightly against the surface of the wok and leave it completely undisturbed. Thermal energy transfers directly into that bottom layer, forming a distinct crispy crust, while the remaining steam escapes upward. Turn off the heat entirely and drizzle in toasted sesame oil. Adding it off the heat preserves its delicate, nutty aromatics from burning away. This exact sequence, fat coating, flash evaporation, and an undisturbed resting phase, engineers a complex matrix of chewy and crispy grains. There is one final protein component. Shift your focus to a separate, smaller, non-stick pan to execute a sunny-side-up egg. The parameters for the egg are strict. Fry it until the albumin is blistered and crispy at the edges, but pull it while the yolk remains highly fluid. This serves a distinct biochemical purpose. The liquid fat of the yolk acts as a secondary rich sauce. It binds the loose grains together and tempers the sharp, acidic heat of the gochujang. Time to plate. Spoon the steaming, vivid red rice into a dark ceramic bowl to maximize the visual contrast, and carefully place the fried egg directly on top. Finish the dish with a few geometric garnishes for crunch and visual pop. toasted sesame seeds, roasted nori strips, and fresh green scallion tops. Check the profile. You have perfectly separated grains, deep smokiness from the rendered pork, a caramelized, tangy heat from the aged kimchi, all balanced by a rich, binding yolk. You have the protocol, so execute this tonight. And to perfect the pork belly used in this recipe, click the video on your screen now for advanced rendering techniques. By respecting the science of moisture control and thermal shock, ordinary pantry leftovers become an elite, comforting masterpiece.